Hey, good evening. So we're gonna do a little bit of a cooking demonstration. I didn't know if that would be interesting. I thought one thing that's easy that most people probably have done in their lifetime is making an omelet. I'll show you how I make mine, which is not the perfect way, but I learned from some experience that there are worse ways than others. I didn't prepare anything like a cooking show does as far as putting out all the ingredients, so I'll just kind of walk you around what we've got to get to make an omelet. But we've got the fundamentals where we have egg. I'm going to use butter. Some people use oil. And I'm going to put onion in there. We're going to do just some traditional spices. And I am going to put cheese in it. So I'll show you how I make mine and we'll go from there. So first things first, we need our eggs. We've got our mixing bowl. We'll go get our eggs from the refrigerator and then we'll go mix them up. It's always funny to me how 6 eggs makes a very small omelet and 2 eggs is going to make an even smaller omelet, but I'm going to try. I'm going to do this over the sink so that I don't make too big of a mess. So remember, you got to crack it hard and then try not to get too much shell inside of the bowl. Here's one. Clean that up later. I got to wash your hands, of course. You don't want to get sick making an omelet or having an omelet show. Okay, so our hands are clean. We're going to have to mix our omelet together. Whisk our eggs. And I think just like pancakes, a lot of people say that the more you whisk, the fluffier they get because you'll introduce more air. And you know this routine, so we'll mix and mix and mix. I know in the store you can buy egg whites or there's a lot of other synthetics, but there's nothing wrong with mixing your own egg when the time comes. All right, so we're all mixed. Remember, we've got to plan ahead, so we've got to put our butter in the pan, so that's got to melt. And I'm going to chop up some onions, so we're going to put that on there. Some people prefer, well, I used to prefer just putting onion powder on the egg, but if you're going to make a traditional omelet, then having some crunch to it or some only faintly sauteed onion taste I think is great. I'll tell you about the other spices we're going to put in there. So anyway, we'll have to put the butter in the pan. I'll grab the cheese out of the refrigerator while we're in there. And then we'll start to make our omelet. All right, let's do it. We got this special kind of Irish butter, Kerrygold, that a lot of grocery stores and a lot of people swear by it. They say that it's because it's grass-fed cows who make the milk, and then you kind of skim off the top to take the cream and make the butter. It's a lot more expensive than just traditional salted butter, but I tell you, the one thing I did learn, so we'll just cut a little piece of butter off of here. One thing I have learned in my time is that when you heat up oil, even when you heat up vegetable oil especially, it actually can become kind of a, not toxic, but it becomes a very unhealthy substance as opposed to butter, which when you melt it, it just becomes a liquid form of it. And you can make clarified butter, which has even the most oily component of it, by melting it and then having it separate over time and then just taking the oily component off of that. So anyway, we'll heat up our stovetop. So we'll heat up the butter. You can see the fire down there. So we'll melt this butter. That's not going to take long. So the next step is that we're going to take our chopping knife. We're going to cut the onion. And then you're going to see me cry because every time I cut onions, I feel like I always cry. But let's see. And it's hard with onions. It has layers. To not peel off the important layers so that you're left with 2/3 of an onion instead of 95% of the onion. But you saw that I only mixed up 2 eggs. And so this is not going to be a very big omelet, which is okay. And so you slice it up. A lot of people hold their knife like this, where they'll pinch the 2 ends, the butts on the end. I saw that on a cooking show once. I thought that seemed fine to me. I'm not sure it's safer in the hands of someone who cooks a couple times a week instead of 10 times a day. But okay, so we diced up our onions. I'm not crying yet, but I feel like I probably could anytime soon. So the butter's starting to melt already. You know how this goes, that you want to have enough butter all over the surface when you pour the egg on top, that the butter is going to be able to protect the pan or protect the egg from just being seared and browned. Whenever you're going to overcook something, I was always reminded that you can always take it off the heat. It's hard to fix it when it's overcooked. So if it's undercooked, by just taking it off the heat, that's one way to do it. So we've got our onion. I forgot the cheese. I'll go get that. And then we'll put our egg on top, and then I'll tell you about the spices I was going to put on there, and it won't take long to make the omelet. Because I have children at home, we have 14 bags, I feel like, of Mexican-style cheese at all times. This has Monterey Jack, cheddar, queso, quesadilla, and asadero cheeses. So we'll put this in kind of towards the end, actually. I like to do that so that you can fold the egg on top of itself. So we'll make sure that the egg is ready to go. So we'll pour this on top. I'm using this spatula, this separator to cook the omelet with. I've used spatulas before, and I think that's great. But the way that I cook the omelet, and you'll see that, it's kind of unique. Okay. So I got it on very low heat. You don't need it to be hot. And what I do is I actually start to push the egg around the pan. Because when you do that, it'll force the egg to kind of create some clumpiness. It'll prevent it from forming into too thick of a layer. And again, you can always take it off, do your part, scrape it off the sides so that it can't just burn onto the sides. How am I doing so far? Does this look like an omelet? Okay. So mix it up. So because it's only 2 eggs, this is not going to take up much of the pan at all. And now that you've got some, still a little bit sloppy, but now that you've got some thicker parts at the bottom, when you do put your spices on top and you put your cheese on there, it will separate just fine. You don't want it to be too wet, but see, it's not moving around at all, so we're going to be ready to add our other ingredients. So at this point, the egg's probably halfway done. This took, what, 60 seconds? Not even. I've got a couple things I like to put on there. Mixed peppercorns. You can buy your traditional black pepper and sprinkle that on there, but we'll mix it because, you know what, it feels like we're cooking when we twist something, right? Put a little bit of crushed black pepper on there. I'll put a little bit of garlic powder on there. I don't love garlic powder in high doses on eggs because then it will taste like a little bit grainy unless it's like a really wet egg by the time you add it, because then it will dissolve the the garlic powder. But if you don't, it'll taste like you really didn't want to cook fresh ingredients in there. I took this out before I chopped up the onion, and then I realized, of course, I'm going to chop up an onion if I have it. This is granulated onion instead of onion powder. I think this is just a larger form of it, more of like a dehydrated onion. But we have fresh onion, so we'll just use that. And then I also like to use chives. So I'm going to put just a couple sprinkles of chives on there. Okay. And this says, attractive garnish, mild onion flavor. Sounds delicious. We're going to add onion, garlic, black pepper, chives. The butter that we used is salted butter, so we don't have to add extra salt, which is nice. So we're going to put some onion on there, and oh boy, are we having a ton of extra onion after this one. We'll have to make an onion casserole or something, and then cheese. And the cheese has got a little bit of salt in it too, right? So we'll just add that in there. Okay, the bottom of the egg is probably cooled considerably. Ooh, but the pan is still plenty hot. Put this back later. So we're gonna still use our traditional mixer spatula, whatever you call this. This is a silicone, which is nice because it'll bend as you're kind of trying to scoop the egg around. And so I'm going to wait for the egg to kind of firm up just a little bit more so that when I scoop underneath and I go to flip it over, that it'll stay flat and it'll start to melt that cheese right in the middle. Okay, almost there. I could add more butter here, but I don't want it to get too seared or too odd. I don't know if you can hear that. Very satisfying sound. Smells like a great omelet. I'm already starting to think about what I'm going to eat with this omelet. Meaning condiments. Am I going to do ketchup or salsa? Where I'm from, ketchup is the only thing that we used to put on omelets, but in Minnesota we put lots of salsas on there, don't we? Okay, you can see that. I just folded it on top. And now I'll let the two do their work, where they're going to kind of smear and melt the egg right in between. Our goal is to melt the cheese. Our goal is to finish cooking the egg. It is edible right now. I mean, it is safe. It's a good cook temperature. But it'd be nice to kind of get the onions to saute or cook a little bit more to kind of infuse some of that flavor. And then the cheese is going to start to melt kind of in the middle too, which is going to be great. If you can tell, it's actually nighttime, and so the dishwasher was going a couple minutes ago, and I just finished kind of cleaning the rest of the dishes, and my son's got his bottles out from before he went to bed, and I'll have to put the eggs in the compost bin, and I'll have to put this extra bin, the egg carton in the recycling. Okay, nice. So the cheese is starting to melt. The onions are almost done. I just do one swipe underneath, kind of for good measure, to make sure not everything is going to like crust completely to the pan. One of my idols is Anthony Bourdain, who is a world traveler, chef, great personality, wrote a lot of books about cooking and the culture of cooking. And in one episode I watched with him, he was reprimanding someone or just commenting like in a restaurant that if you have to flip a burger twice, you're doing it wrong. And I think he would probably say the same thing about an omelet. You'd hope you don't have to do more than just folding it over itself. Okay, looks great. All right, let's serve it up. I got to turn off our high heat. Separate it a little bit. But if you can see, there's a lot of melted cheese on there. You're not supposed to put water on a super hot pan, so we'll let that sit for just a couple minutes. We've got a fan I can turn on, but it's not smoky. It looks great. And then we'll help ourselves. I already told you what I was going to do. We're going to do ketchup. I don't know what cooking show would have a delicious omelet and then have the chef say that ketchup is the best condiment there is, but my kids would not argue. They think ketchup's great. Actually, this organic ketchup is fantastic from Trader Joe's. But as you know, it's just some form of sugar and some tomato puree. See? It's delicious. Tastes like an omelet. Well, I hope you like this. I'm happy to do more demonstrations, but I feel like an omelet's something most people have done, and maybe a trip down memory lane just doing it. Talk to you soon.